Hello, class. So, as the recent presidential election just passed, none of the major candidates seem to address our nation's most troubling issue, which I would argue is our nutritional health. And in 2024, the CDC actually did a study which found that over 100 million US adults are actually obese. And so, how do we solve this problem? And the easy answer would be just eat healthier foods. But as some of you may know, eating these healthy foods are expensive, and sometimes they're not even available, depending on where you live. And so today I'm going to reveal why these health foods are so expensive and what our government has to do with it. It's vital to our health and longevity that we eat healthy foods, and it's pretty corrupt and unfair that that unhealthy foods are so much cheaper than healthy foods. The issue that gets talked about the most is our healthcare system, and instead of worrying about that, I think we should be more worried about preventing so much unhealthy people. And so, first, I'm going to inform you guys on what type of goods dominate our processed food sector. And next, I'm going to explain why they dominate, which has to do with subsidies. And then finally, I'm going to explain why these government subsidies or how these government subsidies affect our food industry. So, the foods that make us so unhealthy are the ones that are the most processed and far from their natural state. And so these, you'll kind of see some common ones, such as corn syrup or just corn in general, soy, added sugars, sugar. You got artificial coloring, preservatives, and many others which you may struggle to read, such as polydextrose. Here, that was pretty easy, but oligofructose, pretty hard. But in 2023, Houston Methodist Medicine actually talked about the problems with these ingredients, and it is that they're highly processed, and the processing of these ingredients adds an excess of saturated fats and sodium that negatively impact our health. And so, to put it a little more simply, if you read a nutrition label and it looks like this, a paragraph long, it's definitely highly processed and not good for you. And so now that you know these goods that dominate our processed food industry, it's time to find out why. And so this has to do with government subsidies. So subsidies in relation to agriculture are basically government handouts of money given to farmers in order to incentivize and maintain, stabilize the production of crops. So, if you were to think of a um, corn farmer is not going to make a lot of money maintaining their whole farm and then selling their crop at $1 or such a low price because it takes a lot to maintain a farm, and so the government basically gives them a check, takes some money, and they're able to produce a ton of their product and still profit. And so without subsidies, prices for some of these crops would be so much higher because the farmers, in order to profit, would have to raise their prices. And so now that you know how these subsidies work, we can answer the question of why they're the lead cause of our obesity epidemic. And it's because these subsidies, or the government actually subsidizes the most unhealthy foods, which sounds kind of crazy. But so, as you can see here, 80% of crops that are subsidized go to only four crops, and that would be corn, wheat, soy, and cotton. And so, said best by Carolyn Millar in 2024, although these subsidies sound like a positive thing, making our food cheap, they're not actually used to provide affordable nutrition, but instead they're turned into these processed foods and fillers and sugars that make the cheap processed foods so unhealthy. According to Washington and Lee University in 2011, the government focuses on subsidies that can either be used as animal feed or processed, such as this corn, soy, and wheat. So, if you have ever wondered, the difference in relation to the animal feed, if you ever wondered the difference between grass-fed cows and grain-fed cows, It's that grass-fed cows are fed their natural grass. It's much better for them. The meat's much better. And these grain-fed cows are fed the corn from the corn farmers, which the government subsidizes, and it's actually much cheaper. And so that's why most cows are grain-fed nowadays rather than grass-fed. And so, the main point is that the government does not give nearly enough attention to foods that make us healthy, like fruits and veggies. In fact, Washington and Lee University pointed out that the government actually defines these fruits and veggies as specialty crops, and these specialty crops are not even recognized in the top 10 or 20 major commodities that are subsidized. So to kind of wrap up this thought in full, Julian Alston says that the subsidization of the most unhealthy commodities such as corn and soy have contributed significantly to our obesity epidemic, because it creates this system where the most unhealthy ultra processed foods become the most abundant and affordable, rather than healthy foods becoming cheap and affordable. And so now you guys know the true reason why our country has health struggles, and why health foods are so costly. The only way to make things better is to kind of spread awareness about it. People would rather talk about our healthcare system or other issues, but the main problem is what our government prioritizes. And so, I explained to you guys the commodities in our foods that make us so unhealthy, and I explained why they're bad for us, and they're so prevalent because of the way the government subsidizes them. So the main problem is that our government doesn't subsidize health foods, and that's the switch that we need to make. And so the next time you spend $5 on a box of cookies and $8 on a dozen eggs, which I was at the store today, and in California they're $8 for the most important meal of the day. They say breakfast. So the next time you spend $5 on some cookies and 8 on some eggs, you can thank the government for that.